Hey, just Mark here. All right, so today I kind of wanted to share a different story, one that I kind of touched on in a few videos, especially my one that I'm going to post up here about not wasting your life. So I survived a heart attack at the age of 35. I was playing beach dodgeball and I felt very sick all of a sudden. So this issue is kind of touchy for me to talk about because I know there's a mix of reasons why it happened, and I want to talk about what I did after. So, just to give you a little bit of a backstory here, my mom had a stroke at the age of 37. But her and I lived like opposite lifestyles. But when I had my heart attack, there were some signs leading up to it that I didn't acknowledge. Like 4 days before, I was playing in an ultimate frisbee game, because I play a lot of sports and do different things. And for those of you who've never played ultimate frisbee, it's a lot of running, and you can't sub off until one of the teams have scored. And anyways, I felt just completely bagged. Like I couldn't seem to run, I couldn't seem to get going, like not so great. That should have been my first sign to go see a doctor. The next sign was a couple of days later, well actually a day later, I was driving, so it's a Friday now, and I felt a couple of shooting pains down my arm while I was driving, and I thought, oh, maybe it's just the way I was sitting, maybe it was a pinched nerve. Again, brushed it off. Let's go to Saturday. Saturday, I had to drop my car off at the time to go and get some, I think it was not oil change, it was new tires. And I had to walk about 100 meters, 150 meters from the shop to the mall so I could go find something to do while I was waiting for it to be done. And I got to that mall, and all of a sudden I was sweating hard. I was exhausted. I was having a hard time breathing, like all of these things. And once again, just got in my car, did my thing, went home after it was all done. Now let's get to Sunday. Sunday morning, for years, I played beach dodgeball. And I actually played dodgeball for about 16 years. But this was my tradition. Every Sunday during the spring and summer, I'd go play beach dodgeball. Well, in the first game, I went to run probably about 10 feet to go get a ball. And all of a sudden, I felt really sick. I broke out into cold sweats, and I immediately subbed off and went off. Sat down, tried to recompose myself. It was 25 degrees Celsius outside. Maybe it was the heat, maybe it was, food poisoning, something I ate the day before. But I felt really sick, and I couldn't seem to keep going. Every time I got up, I felt dizzy. I felt sick to my stomach. I tried playing again. Nope, no dice. Went, sat down, and moved into the next game, I guess. And we just watched my teammates for almost a solid hour. Well, the odd part about that is that watching my teammates for the next hour, sorry, I just have to move my car forward. But watching my teammates for the next hour, and at the end of the game, I went in to play a fun game. And all of a sudden I had like one of the best games ever, but I felt like garbage after. And I remember going to my car and sitting there only to find out from a phone call that I got while I was sitting in my car that a mutual friend called me and said that one of our mutual friends had died in a scuba diving accident. Now, I figure he was a couple of years older than me. I didn't know him very well, but I knew his wife very well. We were really good friends. And in that moment, that prompted me to drive. Yeah, drive. How smart is that? Drive to the hospital. It was something I should mention is before all that, while I was doing dodgeball, I had 3 different friends mention, Mark, I think you're having a heart attack. And I kept denying it. I was in denial. I'm like, no, I'm not having a heart attack. I'm fine. I'm in good shape. But no, they were right. And I should have left immediately, and people offered to drive me to the hospital, but I was like, no, I'm fine. It's just something I ate. Anyways, back to the car. I drove to the hospital, checked myself in, and I think within 20 minutes, I was told that I was having a heart attack. That was hard. It was really hard to realize that moment. I was 35 years old, a week before my 36th birthday. And my life kind of flashed a bit before my eyes. I also found in that moment, that day, that I was also type 2 diabetic, and I had no clue. But the doctor's like, you know what? We're going to do an angiogram, which is where they put like a catheter either through your groin or through your arm, and they check to see what your arteries were like and to see how bad the damage was. Well, it turns out I had 2 pretty big blockages in my heart, and was told I was going to need surgery for 2 stents. So they told me my surgery would probably be the next day. They put me on nitro, which basically opens up your arteries, which gives you the worst bloody migraine you've ever had in your life, and put me on a bunch of fluids and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not gonna lie, I was fucking scared. I was frightened. I contacted a couple friends and family members, told them what was going on. I actually even had, I was supposed to see a friend of mine that night for coffee, and that friend is actually someone I kind of had a crush on. And I really wanted to ask her out, but no guts. But we were going to go for coffee, and I had to cancel that. So we get to the next day, and things got delayed. I ended up being in the hospital for a total of, sorry, I'm going to wipe a tear away here, of, I think, 7 days. Because a few days later, I think it took 4 days before I finally got in for my stent surgery. And during that surgery, when they went to go they put in the first stent very successfully. And when they went to put in the second stent, from what I read and what I was told by my cardiologist, is that I went into cardiac arrest. So they couldn't put the second stent in. But they said it would be okay because that artery wasn't as badly blocked as the previous one. And it was a long recovery after that. I mean, I got out. I took some time off work. I was forced to, really. And it's hard to talk about. And during that time off work, which I believe was 6 months, 5 or 6 months, I went to cardiac rehab. I relearned about my health, and I went to get better from there. Here were my choices after my heart attack. Either wallow in my own self-pity and hurt and fears, or do something about it. And I chose to be better, be a better person. I chose to exercise more. I was already a runner, and I did set some pretty lofty goals at that time. I decided that I was going to go and run what's called a Goofy Challenge in Disney World. And I also decided that I was going to do Spartan challenges. And the funny part is I never got into a Spartan challenge for a couple of years, actually. And part of the reason for that was just health. And every time I signed up for something, it just didn't quite work. Or there's delays or whatever. But I chose to be better. I dedicated my time to being healthy. I had to start slow because I had to start just by walking. And once I got approval for cardiac rehab, I had to walk, I had to do treadmill stuff, I had to go on an exercise bike for a little bit until they felt my heart was well enough for me to learn to run again. And that took time. 6 months. I mean, I took 12 weeks of rehab, and things just changed from there. Once I got done that and I was back to work, it was back to reality. And I had to take care of myself. So I ate really well. I walked a lot. I exercised a lot. I chose to push forward and be happy and motivate myself. I knew that I had to do whatever I could to get better for myself, for my family at the time. I mean, I won't forget seeing my mom's face and my sister's faces after I woke up from my surgery, and they were scared, my niece. And that motivated me. But that also caused some mental issues that I had to deal with. Because all of a sudden I was in protection mode, not for me, but for my family. I wanted to assure them I was okay. Meanwhile, inside I was freaking out. I went on to challenge myself. I did actually eventually complete what's called at the time, a Goofy Challenge in Disney World for Run Disney, where I ran a half marathon and a marathon all in the same weekend. I also happened to do the 5K race as well while I was out there. And that was in 2013. No, not 2013. By the time that was done, that was 2016 when I finally did that. So 3 years of training, 3 years of motivating myself. I also did a few other runs along the way. And I remember when I crossed that finish line, and I'll show a picture here, the emotions were amazing. I was crying. I was excited. I was everything. And the hard part about having a heart attack so young is you know that it could happen again. So some of you probably wonder what were my reasons? What happened? How did I have a heart attack? Part of it was genetics. As I mentioned before, my mom had a stroke at the age of 37. I also drank and partied and did a few things in my 20s that were not beneficial. I did eat like crap for a long time, and off and on I would smoke. Not great, right? But I got better. I got way better. And my health was like top notch for the longest time. And I chose to continue. I chose to push forward. I chose to surround myself with groups and support groups that would help me along the way, some of which I'm still a part of, and they're on Facebook, and I still talk to other people and I try to motivate other people. And I was healthy. My life was changing. I was happy, and little did I know that all that progress a few years later, 7 years later to be exact, would be almost wiped out. So that was tough. And I'll talk about that in another video, because I did have to have a quadruple bypass surgery in 2020 at the age of 42. I'll tell you this though, nothing makes you look at your reality in your life harder than when you're knocking on death's door. Heart attack, cardiac arrest. I could be 6 feet under by now. And I think about that a lot. And I'm always thankful for those friends who told me that they thought I was having a heart attack. I'm thankful for that one friend for that phone call. I'm thankful to my cardiologist. I'm thankful to the cardiac rehab nurses. Those people motivated the hell out of me. They were so great and so encouraging. But no matter what they did, I still had to find it in me to continue to go. And I made my life better. I still have fears. I still get scared. And I know that maybe one day, because of my heart disease, that I may need another surgery. I also know that my life may be shorter, but who knows? And I try to do my best, and I know in the last year I haven't been my best, and I need to fix that again. So basically, to sum this up, I had a heart attack at 35, and I chose to push forward and make my life better. I chose to encourage myself. I chose to do the hard things. I chose to not give up. So if any of you are watching this, you've had a heart attack recently, or you're worried about your health or anything like that, just know you can get through this. You can do this. And please comment below, because I would love to hear what you want to say or what you have to say, or if you have any questions for me. I welcome questions. So anyways, that's my story about having a heart attack in my 30s. It wasn't easy. It's emotional, and you got to choose to live. Anyways, cheers. I'll see you on the next one.